welcome to the Definitive UFO News Show. With me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We are back in the building. We're going to be talking about where are the crash retrievals? Where are the crash retrievals? Who is storing them? Where are they at? Right? We know that they're crashing. We know that they're taking the craft and they're moving them somewhere. But where is that place? Where is that place? I think when we talk about the Congress and a lot of people that are waiting for these hearings, like the one that's coming up, I believe next month, are waiting. I don't know what people are waiting for. The only other thing that we could have, hopefully, would be a whistleblower who was directly involved with the program. Other than that, what are we doing? Because it would appear that the government has, or Congress at least, should have all the information that they need to go knock on doors. So the question is, why haven't they? Right? That's my question, and that's kind of where I'm at in this whole scenario. Why haven't they taken the information that they've been given, Jake Barber, David Grush, who have given names, dates, and places and addresses, and why haven't they pulled up? Well, there's a particular place, actually not too far from me here, where a lot of the government contractors kind of are working on top secret projects, right, on behalf of the government. Lockheed Martin would be one, McDonnell Douglas would be two, and also Northrop Grumman at a place called Plant 42. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. This is where it all goes down. This is right over in Palmdale, California. I'm in Bakersfield, California. This goes down right over probably 60, 70 miles away from me, maybe, or give or take. So the plan is to go ahead and go out there at some point. I definitely want to go out there and do some filming from the location. But you got to start asking yourself some questions, right? Where are the craft? Where's the building? What building are these craft being held in? Right? Do we need to post up some experiencers with picket signs, or I don't know what we would do, what sort of action we would do to try to, move the needle on that. But I noticed there's a lot of people that go out to this particular location and just, are filming from outside the perimeter. And the way that it's set up is that it's set up right off of a main road. So you could literally sit right outside the gates of Plant 42 and actually go in and take footage of the buildings. It's almost like you could touch them. They're right across the street from where you're able to stand and take videos. So also they have a place where you're able to pull over, park, and kind of watch the planes take off from Plant 42. A lot of interesting information. See, first, I didn't even know what Plant 42 was. Right? This is the name for the Edwards Air Force Base. There's a portion of the base where all the government contractors are. And it's 412th, I believe is what it's called. I have all the information on it here. We're gonna take a look at it. So let me go ahead and jump into the show real quick. Let's see who has come in. We had a few technical difficulties. Mr. Rob G says this program is a POS. It is. It definitely is. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Rob G. Frankie B, appreciate you coming on in for the sound check, for the sound test, making sure we were up and running okay. Same thing, Kitty Catty Whack. Thanks for coming on in. Tim James, appreciate you for coming on in, sir. Yes, thank you, Kitty Catty Whack, for dropping the super chat, just testing it out, making sure that it works. And it does, and I appreciate your support of the show here tonight as we're getting back to business. Okay. All right, so I'm going to jump right on into it, guys. Let me see. We have the call-in line, which won't be used for this show. It'll be used for the late-night call-in show, which we'll be back with that here shortly. The call-in number for you to just save in your phone is 856-843-3444, or that's 856-THE-DIGG. Or if you're outside the United States, like some of you are, dial 001 first, then 856-843-3444, or 001-856-THE-DIGG. and we will get right into business. Also, we do have memberships available to become a social soldier today. You can do that by clicking the link in the description. We would appreciate that. It just helps the show and really helped me get off of this program. I'm really trying to find so many ways to get off of this program. It's kind of messing up my flow. I don't like it. And we're going to go ahead and get right on into the show. Let's see. We have, and I put this up a few weeks ago, right? And it was because I think this is one of the final questions that we have to ask, right? If we're looking for disclosure and we want to know where the craft, or we want someone to step in from who has firsthand knowledge of the programs. Where are the programs, right? We know there's people out there that know exactly, what it is that I'm asking here, as far as Ross Coulthard and others that know, have been told by sources where these programs are. Jeremy Corbell came out and said it, a few months back. Everyone should be looking at Plant 42. And I was like, what is Plant 42? So I looked it up, and it's definitely three of the main contractors that are literally on Edwards Air Force Base. And this is where they have the dry lake bed. They do a lot of test flights there. And this is where a lot of people are feeling like these things are being held. And then if you remember, we talked about Ross Coulthard on the last show, and Representative Burleson from a month prior, who had talked about the Tic Tacs being Lockheed Martin, right? So if it's the case, if they're reverse engineering or building Tic Tacs, then they would be building it at Plant 42. So let me go ahead and get into a little bit of this stuff. And I actually want to do this to kind of refresh everybody's memory, because as it still stands, I think we still have a lot to hear from what you see on the screen, the egg-shaped UFO. I think there's going to be more coming from that, as I stated before, because Jake Barber wasn't the one who took the video on this, right? So the person that did take the video is the one that we should be hoping to hear from, and then finding out what contractor that was delivered to, who has it now, right? There are a few things that I wanted to look at, but first, let me talk to you about the Three-Eye Atlas real quick here, because Ross Coulthard, Avi Loeb, actually added to his Medium article, and I wanted to go ahead and cover that real quick. What do we know so far about Three-Eye Atlas? For whatever reason, Avi Loeb is saying, hey, you need to kind of open your eyes. Maybe this is some sort of, intelligent object. Maybe it's not just a comet. And showing characteristics of it not being a comet, right? Because they're stating there should be a tail on this thing. The closer that it gets to the sun, they're not seeing one. As far as what Avi Loeb has said, right? So he could be full of it, and he could really be eating crow by the end of this, because I think there comes you had a Muamua. Let's talk about that first. So we had a Muamua. It already left by the time there was attention on it, and there was speculation. Avi Loeb was really the only one out there saying he thought, based on the trajectory, that it was an interstellar object and that it potentially was intelligent, right? So it's like, okay, it's gone. You can't really check it to see. So now we had a second object. I don't recall that one really getting a lot of fanfare, but this third object, which is 3I, which is third interstellar, and the object's name is Atlas. So now we have time to see it before it comes. And he's putting on his Avi Loeb scale, which is 1 through 10, 1 mundane, 10 super intelligent from somewhere else. He's giving this thing a 4. So I know I talked earlier about how it jumped to 40%. So I guess that's where they're getting the number from, because Avi Loeb is now putting it as a 4 on his scale of 10. Okay. So I think the problem with that is that even though he says there's a great chance that it's nothing, right? But I think because you are throwing it out there that there's a possibility that it's alien tech, and it keeps being brought up in the news as a possibility. If it ends up just being a regular old comet, how many more times are they going to listen to Ivy Loeb when it comes to interstellar objects? That's the issue I'm having right now. So, you kind of hope that he's right, but then at the same time, you hope that he's wrong, right? You hope that he's right because it's someone thinking outside the box, giving a different perspective on what we should be, you know, on reasons why this doesn't seem to be what we're normally used to seeing, right? It could end up being nothing, but like I said, for the sake of Ivy Lowe's reputation, I really hope that there's something there. But he added to his Medium article, and we read part of it on the first article on one of the previous shows. So I'm going to read some more here before we jump into the actual meat and potatoes. The Medium article, what do we know so far about 3i Atlas? About a month from now, the interstellar object 3i Atlas will be on the far side of the sun, making it unobservable from Earth. On October 3rd, 2025, it will pass within 29 million kilometers from Mars, and the high-rise camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter will be able to image it with a pixel resolution of 30 kilometers. So that, I guess that's pretty good, right? I believe that's pretty good. The time is ripe to summarize what we know so far about 3i Atlas. First, 3i Atlas does not feature a distinct cometary tail based on the highest resolution image taken by Hubble telescope on July 21st, 2025. And I think I talked about that with one of the previous guests on After Hours, is that this thing isn't showing a cometary tail. They've given reasons on why that might be. I guess it's gassing out CO2. Some people are thinking that the ice is beneath that, and the CO2 is kind of shielding it from the heat of the sun. Therefore, it's not displaying a tail at this point, but that the closer it gets, that it will. So that's what some people are saying. All right. So Avi Loeb says, first, 3i Atlas does not feature a distinct cometary tail based on the highest resolution image taken by Hubble Space Telescope. The image shows a fuzzy glow of scattered sunlight that does not extend to the far tail side of the object away from the sun any more than it extends on the side perpendicular to that direction. In fact, the only elongation of the glow is towards the sun in the anti-tail direction. If the scattering of sunlight had been off dust particles, then these particles would have been pushed by solar radiation pressure from the sun facing direction to the opposite side, and would have displayed a generic cometary tail stretched over a few arc seconds behind the object, easily detectable by the Hubble telescope. The fact that this tail is not observed suggests that 3i Atlas suggested. Let's see, I lost my place here. Suggests that 3i Atlas does not shed much dust particles with a size comparable to a wavelength of sunlight in order of 0.5 micrometer. The spectrum of 3i Atlas shows substantial reddening. In the absence of the sub-micrometer dust, the reddening must originate from the solid surface of 3i Atlas. This is not unexpected, since similar reddening is observed by the surfaces of Kuiper Belt objects like Arrokoth, which is similarly exposed to interstellar cosmic rays. To produce this reddening without shedding submicron dust particles, most of the sunlight reflected from 3i Atlas must originate from its surface. It then follows that brightness of 3i Atlas implies a surface diameter of 20 kilometers for an albedo of 5% that characterizes Kuiper Belt objects. The flux detected by Sphere X Space Observatory at a wavelength of 1 micrometer from 3i Atlas on August 8 through 12, 2025 suggests an even larger nucleus with a diameter of 46 kilometers. This implies that the mass of 3i Atlas is 1 million times larger than that of the previous interstellar object 2i Borisov. So that was the second one after Oumuamua. And he said is a million times larger. Okay. This huge gap in mass is surprising since we should have discovered numerous objects the size of 2I Borisov before discovering a 46-kilometer interstellar object. Moreover, as I noted in my first paper on 3I Atlas, the amount of rocky material per unit volume in interstellar space is much smaller by a factor of 10,000 than the value needed to deliver the inner solar system one giant rock of this size over the decade-long survey conducted by the Atlas telescope. Sphere X images show 3I Atlas as a point source with no dust coma or tail. The observation revealed a cloud of carbon dioxide, CO2, around 3I Atlas out to distances of at least 348,000 kilometers, corresponding to a mass loss rate of about 70 kilograms per second. No water or H2O cloud was detected by Sphere X, setting an upper limit. Setting an upper limit of 4.5 kilograms per second on the water mass loss rate. This is an order of magnitude below the previous claims of water detection, which reported a mass loss rate of order of 40 kilograms per second. Apparently, these early claims are not real, as I argued in a previous essay. The Sphere X report notes that the lack of bright water gas coma is puzzling, as 3I Atlas was not too far outside the solar system's water ice line at 2.5 astronomical units during the observation. So essentially, along the way is more and more, I guess, of the standard astrophysicists are looking at this and saying, no, Avi, this is a comet. Avi's like, well, no, look at this. There's different things. There's things that don't line up. There's things that don't make sense. And Avi Loeb's whole thing is just like, hey, why not be prepared? Even if they're, we'll make it a small percentage, but 40 is pretty big. If you're at 40% of it being something not mundane, that's pretty big. That's almost 1-to-1, right? So whatever that means. But I think, if you're seeing something that you haven't seen before, you should be open to what it could be. And I'm not an astrophysicist, so I can't say, it's doing this or it's doing that. But I can lean on one that is saying, hey, it's not showing the typical characteristics of a natural comet that you see coming through the solar system. Now, we'll know this will be proven or disproven as each day goes by, because you're going to get to a point to where it's close enough to the sun where it should be gassing and should show as any other comet, right? It should look exactly the same, have this super long tail. Until it has that, I'm open to this being a weird thing, like something we may not saying it's alien, but just saying it might be just something else, right? Not alien, but not a comet. Who knows, right? So hopefully that the camera on the Mars rover it gets it, because they said it should get it at 30 nautical miles or something like that, right? So hopefully that's good enough for us to get a good image of what it is. I know they have the Juno camera out there by Jupiter. They were going to try to use that. So I'm really hoping they're using all their resources to try to capture an image of what this is at different stages, just so we know, right? I would like to know. So thought we'd get that going, get that covered here. Appreciate you, Frankie B, becoming a member here. We appreciate you showing your love here tonight as we are getting into some stuff here. So that was 3I Atlas. I just want to talk about that because we haven't been on here in a while. A lot of stuff has happened. There's other subjects that we'll be covering. I'm going to book another show after this. And we'll talk about some other things. But I do want to get into the crash retrievals, because I think that's where we're at in the conversation. Is just, where are, as we're waiting for the next shoe to drop, like, what is the next shoe? What is that next shoe? I feel like it has to be someone coming out that had direct contact with one of these craft, or someone that was on the receiving end of receiving one of these crash retrievals. And I I don't know this, but I just feel like Ross Coulthard is holding on to that. And I'll kind of refresh your memory on why that is. Here's the video. We've seen this before, but it definitely ties into what we're talking about now. So let's check it out.
Tell me, there's, the classic video that there was even a promo from News Nation about, where everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's the night vision goggle version of the rope hanging down and the egg craft wrapped in something and that kind of thing. What is the provenance? You'd ask the same question of anyone else. So I'm just asking you, what's the provenance of that? Where did that video come from? Is it actually taken from Barber's Craft, or was it taken at a different time? There's just a lot of rumor and misinformation on that one. So let's clear it up right now.
Clearly, I have many other sources inside the Legacy program. Clearly, there are other people talking to me. And clearly, I've been able to procure the video from the retrieval program in a completely separate operation from Jake Barber. Barber did not give me that video, period. That's
was it taken from Barber's Craft, though, I guess is the question. No. So it's if anything, and again, I'd almost have to watch your show again because I think that the initial rush of comment was people going, somebody said, well, by the way, that wasn't even taken, that's not related to it. And they put them together. But
you know what I find? It's funny, you give the UAP community what they want. And they come galloping over the hill like the cavalry going, oh, it's all a CIA psyop. It's all bullshit. Don't trust them. They're all false flags. And then you had other people saying, oh, it's an aerogel balloon. Don't you think if it was an aerogel balloon, the Pentagon would have been out on Monday morning, first thing, saying, this is complete bollocks. This is an aerogel balloon.
Right.
I mean, the bottom line is they know what we've got. They know what we're sitting on. And they're very nervous about what we're going to do with the rest of what we've got. And they'd better make a decision.
Can you define they? When you say they?
The gatekeepers. The gatekeepers. The people who are sitting on this absurd secret. We're doing them a favor.
So, with that being said, that Ross is leading me to believe by that statement that he understands that when he released that video, this one you're seeing on the screen of the egg-shaped craft is supposedly the first, image or video of a UFO crash retrieval ever. This, if it's to believe to be authentic, right? And so Ross is saying further in that statement that the contractors, the people who received this object, know that this is real, know that this footage is authentic, and that they are kind of scared of what else may come, from this. That they understand that Ross has other things aside from what was released right there, as far as knowledge of where that thing is and who it was delivered to, and potentially other footage, and hopefully the person that actually picked this thing up, that Ross has contact with that person. I'm hoping that this is what he has. I would think that before releasing this video, he would have probably lined those things up, but I can't, it's hard to say. I would hope that he did the due diligence to do that. And I think it's going to lead us to Plant 42. So what is Plant 42? I didn't know until, by that name. I didn't know it by that name, so it was hard for me to tell you specifically what Plant 42 was until I did the research. And this is what I found. United States Air Force Plant 42. That's very important, I think. That's very key, because who has been the branch of military that has just been mum is the word? Who's been absent this entire conversation? Going back, we know that crash retrievals are likely done by the United States Air Force, right? This started out, I think, Roswell was like the United States Army Air Force, right? So this is the beginning of the cover up. They go back to the beginning of the cover up, is what I'm saying. They've been totally quiet throughout all the revelations that we've had over the last 8 years. The Lou Elizondo coming out 2017, the David Fravors, the David Grush, the Jake Barber. United States Air Force has been mum. So it's kind of interesting that Plant 42 is on a United States Air Force base because they're complicit in what's going on by them not saying anything. We know they have data. You know, their pilots are definitely coming across these things in the sky, the anomalous things. And then if they're partnered up with the contractors, then you know they have an idea of what is coming from the contractors, right? And then, so essentially what the contractors have created on their own, and then also things that may have been delivered from a crash retrieval to one of these contractors. So, you know, the rumor had been, and Ross Coulthard came out, made the big statement about a month ago, and then a month prior to that, Rhett Burleson said the same thing, that Lockheed Martin has been developing the Tic Tac. Okay, you can take that with a grain of salt. You can take that however you want to take it. I'm not too sure how I feel about that. But let's just take a look at the contractors and see. These are some of the things that they've been known for here over the years. So first of all, this is Plant 42. Let me see if I can get this full screen here. All right, this is Plant 42. This really isn't too far from me. This is probably 60, 70 miles away. I pass by Edwards Air Force Base all the time, going back and forth to Las Vegas. You know, I'm right in the middle of Edwards Air Force Base and Vandenberg Space Force Station, or whatever they call it. I actually saw a rocket launched a few weeks ago, about a month or two ago. It was pretty awesome. But all of the activity, all of the creation, and I actually watched the video from Plant 42. They have the 412th, let me see what it's called. It's the 412. I don't want to say this wrong here. It's the 412. What's the TW? Give me a second here. I want to make sure we say this right here. Well, I'll just show you here. All right. Plant 42. This was one of the documents that I found from the 412 TW. This is like a branch of the service of the Air Force that specifically deals with the contractors and the development of black projects. You know, I want something on this, and they said that every aircraft that you've seen in the sky from World War II, or any military craft, more specifically aircraft, came from this facility, from Plant 42. So going all the way back to World War II, everything that had been developed for the military has been developed at this plant. All right. This was a memo or a slide from, it would appear to be from, one of their meetings at the 412. So this kind of breaks down what, if you looked at the image we had here, which is this one. So this is what it looks like if you were to go on Google Maps. You see the runway there. There's a lot of buildings, a lot of facilities. In their little memo, they kind of break down what those things are. So you could always freeze frame this and go back and look at it. But you can see Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin with multiple buildings there. Even NASA is there as well. They're all on site there at Edwards Air Force Base. So, okay, what are they doing there, right? That would be the next question. This is some of the things that they've developed there right under the nose of everyone. Let me actually go through this first, though. This was out of the slideshow from the 412th, just showing how many people are employed at Plant 42. So government employees, 700, and this is back somewhere between 2015 and 2020, because the director at the time was named John Esch, and he was director from 2015 to 2020. So this fell somewhere within that range. But total employees at Plant 42, when you add contractors, was there's 6,750. And I don't know what term is, maybe temporary. I don't know what that is, but 7,600 total employees working through the government and contractors at Plant 42. So Northrop Grumman, who has been responsible for the X-47B, which is a demonstration unmanned combat aerial vehicle. The X-47B tested carrier-based drone operations. While not entirely a black project, many aspects of its development were classified. So this was developed at Plant 42 through Northrop Grumman. They had the YF-23 Black Widow 2, Northrop Grumman in partnership with McDonnell Douglas, developed the YF-23 as part of the Advanced Tactical Fighter Program. Although it was not chosen for production, the project showcased advanced stealth technology. We also had Tactic Blue, also known as Shamu or Whale. Tactic Blue was an experimental stealth aircraft designed to test low observable technologies. It remained classified until its declassification in 1996. So this is all developed through Northrop Grumman. We also had the RQ-180, and we've looked at this before. This is one of those drones. They had the RQ-170 that had been captured by a foreign country. They reverse engineered it, made their own version of it, and we just said forget it and came out with the RQ-180, which is an unmanned aerial vehicle. Also Northrop Grumman. And then the B-2 Spirit, obviously the stealth bomber. This was developed, released, and unveiled back in 1988, right? This is all Northrop Grumman. Also the B-21 Raider, showing also as Northrop Grumman as well. So to give you a little history on McDonnell Douglas, I couldn't find too much on them. They only listed the F-15 Eagle is coming out of there. And then also the, let's see, this is the Isinglass. And according to this was a rumored reconnaissance aircraft concept from the 1960s designed to replace the SR-71 Blackbird, reportedly involving hypersonic speeds and advanced materials. So this never came to fruition, apparently. This never was released. Let's see. And I think that was the only two I could find for them. So now we get to Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works. Obviously, the U-2 Dragon Lady, which there's a pretty awesome story. Let me try to come back in here. There's a pretty awesome story about the U-2 Dragon Lady that has to do right here with Bakersfield. There's a warehouse. It's currently a concrete factory, or the warehouse building is still the same. It's intact. But apparently, this is Lockheed Martin. When they were developing the U-2, they sent it here to Bakersfield to be tested. So they sent it in pieces, and it was assembled in a warehouse here in Bakersfield. They tested it out inside of a warehouse. Then they dismantled it again to put on a plane right here at our local airport, Meadows Airfield, to fly right over the mountain to Area 51 to be tested. So And there's a lot of other places around here in Southern California where things like that have happened. This happened right under the noses of people who were living here at the time, in a warehouse right on the north side of town, top secret aircraft being assembled, tested, disassembled, and then shipped over to Area 51. Pretty amazing. Also, obviously the SR-71, shout out to Jim Goodall. Anytime I see SR-71, got to shout out to Jim Goodall. The SR-71 long-range advanced reconnaissance aircraft capable of flying speeds over Mach 3 and at altitudes above 85,000 feet. At the time, making it nearly untouchable by enemy defenses. This came from Skunk Works. Obviously, this did as well. The F-117 Nighthawk, the first operational stealth craft designed to evade radar detection, became publicly known after its role in the Gulf War. And I do remember that. I remember they just came out with these and won the war, and it was like, whoa, what were those? Yeah, I remember that moment. It's pretty awesome. Also, the F-22 Raptor, advanced stealth fighter with superior agility, speed, and integrated avionics, developed as part of the U.S. Air Force's next generation air superiority program. The F-35 Lightning II, a family of stealth multi-role fighters with advanced sensors and capabilities designed for various military branches and allied nations. This is all Skunk Works. This is the D-21. And if that shape looks familiar, there's a reason why. Because it looks like an SR-71, right? It looks like the wing of an SR-71. This is the unmanned drone. There's a variation of the SR-71. They have, I think, 4 different models of the SR-71. There was one of them that had the ability to carry this drone during flight, and it would release it midair. Right? That's what this was. I don't think they ever used it, but I know that this was. Let me see, high-speed reconnaissance drone designed to be launched from modified. Yeah, it was the A-12. Which is essentially just another version of SR-71. I think this one was used for the CIA. Intended for missions too risky for manned aircraft. All right. Also, we have, okay, so that's it. So those are, just to give you an idea, at Plant 42, those contractors are there, those particular government contractors. Those are the craft that they've worked on or released from that facility, which once again is only like 60, 70 miles from here. And so, like I said, I watched a video where one of the commanders at the current commander there was talking about, he was giving a speech to all the soldiers and government employees that worked at the plant. And he was just kind of, just giving them a pep talk, talking about how, they should be proud. Essentially, everything that the military has used aircraft-wise comes from that facility. So that was pretty awesome, right? To know that that's so close to me. Now, if they're working on a Tic Tac or some other craft, we just don't have any, anything to connect the dot to what they've released to some technology as advanced as Tic Tac, right? So if we're going to go on the boat and say that they are definitely reverse engineering alien tech, which I don't think they are, we don't see anything through what they've released, even up to current day, that even ties to that sort of technology. Could they still have it? Maybe. I wouldn't lean too far into it. But some of the things that make it, the collusion, just when you start looking at it, right? It's like, okay, since the beginning, you had the cover-up of all cover-ups, which is Roswell. So that goes to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, supposedly, right? So the Air Force has been in the loop from the beginning on the extraterrestrial presence, on the fact that we have craft coming here, and then likely are the ones who have received the craft and transferred it on to their contractors, right? So we know that the U.S. Air Force and the contractors that their interests are aligned. The United States Air Force hasn't said anything at all during this whole conversation about UFOs. And I think it's because they know, they already know, right? And it truthfully, when you look at it, when we talk about compartmentalization, I've never been in the military, but I've talked to some people who have some vets, and the Army may not know what the Navy's doing. Navy may not know what the Marines are doing. Marines may not know what the Air Force is doing, right? And so it may be very plausible that those other agencies like the Marines, the Navy, the Army may not have much data at all on what these things are. All the data we know the Air Force has for sure. We know they have it. So they have also the knowledge. When you have the contractors on your facility, when they're on your government property, you got to know what they're doing. So if they're retrieving craft, that means the Air Force fully knows they're retrieving craft. If they've reverse engineered, someone within the United States Air Force knows that they're working on reverse engineering. Like, it's a for sure thing. And one of the things that I would hope to see, and I got to check to see who's speaking at the hearings next month, because I'm like, now I need to look back, because I don't believe we've had anyone from the Air Force step out at any point to say anything about this phenomena. I don't think we've had anyone from the Air Force. And so is that the next thing that should happen, right? Is the Air Force keeping all that information away from the other branches of military? Is that very possible? Does that mean the shadow government exists within that United States Air Force structure or hierarchy? Is that shadow element somewhere in there? Because it seems like most of the black projects go to the United States Air Force. I know they go to all branches of the government, but it seems like the Air Force is like in bed with the contractors directly. Like, they're not just, they're not just working on projects for them. They're like together. They're like as one. So I think that's why it would appear that's why the United States Air Force has not said anything, because they fully know that there are craft being retrieved, and they fully know that some of these contractors are trying to reverse engineer, and it's like, what can they say? They rather just say nothing, I guess, than lie. Maybe that's what it is, because if they were to come out and say that they had no evidence of anything, then that would be a complete and total lie, because we know different. The United States Air Force also is NORAD, right? Which is seeing these things come in from space at 80,000 feet and drop into the ocean. They have, if you could see the view that NORAD has of the sky, I think it goes all the way down to Central America, or the range of their scope of what they can see. So they're fully aware and complicit. But the one thing that I did realize is that when watching the United States Air Force, their main thing is pushing the adversarial aspect. They're always like, and I don't know if that's just within that branch, but publicly, it's all about, what has China done? China is advancing. China's doing this. We need to advance. Part of that pep talk that I saw, they talked about the United States, the Plant 42 being the place where all military craft have come from since World War II. They also talked about the the China threat and how advanced they are, and they showed some of their craft. And so, but nothing, there was nothing that I saw. They didn't address drones. They didn't address any of that stuff. And maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that, because 8 months or 6 months prior to the New Jersey drone situation, they actually had drone incursion over Edwards Air Force Base, over Plant 42. They had drone incursion in August of 2024. And then they've never, and once again, maybe because it's top secret, so they talked about it behind closed doors. They didn't talk about it in that pep rally. But you got to start asking yourself questions then. If they couldn't do anything about it, and they're the ones that are connected to the government contractors, they would know if these were the contractors, right, doing that. They would know if what we saw in the skies belonged to the contractors or not in New Jersey. But then the fact that they didn't do anything and reported that they had an incursion back in August, which would mean to me that they are not connected or associated with whatever it was that incurred over Edwards Air Force Base. So it would lead me away from thinking that whatever those were came from black projects, because all the contractors are under the thumb of the United States Air Force. So that's just something I was looking at. Also, another thing that was weird to me is the fact that, and maybe I have the slide here. I think I do. Let me go back here. Let me go back here. There is a slide here. I don't know if I can show it to you or not. No. All right, let me go back here. There was a slide I skipped over. I wanted to show you guys. All right, at Plant 42, there was something about the fact that it is the only place. It is the only plant. I guess they have a lot of different U.S. Air Force plants around the globe. And this one is the only plant that has its own airfield, right? And it makes sense because this is where all these top secret craft are being worked on. So I thought that was kind of strange, right? Being that it's the only one with because then it lines up. It says that, things take off and land from there. One thing that does are the Janet jets that you see to fly into Area 51. And they actually taxi back from Area 51 to Plant 42. So they fly directly from Area 51, land at Plant 42, take off back to Area 51 right from Plant 42. So it's just a lot of things that really point to it being probably the place where all of this stuff is going on, right? So is there someone keeping an eye on these guys? That would be the next step, the next question. Who's watching? I'm sure they're moving things underground from building to building, because I wouldn't. They have different buildings for different things where they test different things for the black project. So it would make sense that instead of them taxiing those vehicles outside of the buildings to get to the next building, that they're being transferred underground, most likely, which it would make total sense, right? So there's a very good chance that a lot of this stuff is going on there. So that was another thing I was looking at. Let's see. Also, this was another thing. So with the drone incursion that happened back in August of last year, at Edwards in Plant 42, Vandenberg had an incident 6 months later when the whole New Jersey situation was happening. Right above Vandenberg, there was a Chinese national who had flew his drone, just a regular drone, one you could fit inside your coat or conceal inside a coat. Flew it above Vandenberg Air Force Base up to an altitude of like 8,000 feet. That's over a mile above Vandenberg. It was detected by Vandenberg, and they followed it back to the person that launched it. So they were able to track that drone back to its origin. However, when we talk about Plant 42, where all the black projects are being done, there's likely, the security is likely as great or exceeds that of Vandenberg based on the assets that are there at Plant 42. So you would assume, and I saw something that said that they do have like a geofence around Plant 42 that would affect anything that you put up, like any drones that you would put up, this technology would shut them down. So how do you have drone incursions over a facility like that, right? That go on for days, multiple days. It doesn't, it just points to they don't know what those things are. They don't know what they are, and they're not coming from Lockheed Martin. They're not coming from any of those Northrop Grumman, Madonna. They're not coming from any of those because they live on the base, on the Air Force base that the incursions happen. So if it was coming from them, they wouldn't report it. For one, it wouldn't be publicly reported that these drones, because they'd be testing their own tech, right? So it doesn't make sense that that would be the case. So with that being said, I only bring that up because I think it takes the reverse engineering out of the picture, I think, for me. But potentially retrieving craft, I think, is more doable. But then when you look at, once again, I point to Bob Lazar in '89, even though it was a long time ago. It was almost like 40 years ago. Yeah, it was close to 40 years ago. They hadn't figured it out. Okay, fast forward. Lukatsky said in 2016, I believe, that they still hadn't figured it out. So I don't think they reverse engineered. If anything, they do have the retrieve craft. You know, the United States Air Force is key, I think, in, if we're going to listen to anybody else, they need to come from the Air Force, I think. Because I really don't think that, you know, we're going to, unless they're in the contractor, I don't think we're going to find anyone else that's going to be able to give us everything, right? So hopefully, I don't know what's going on there. Hopefully we get some whistleblowers from the United States Air Force. But with that being said, that's the next step here, is to figure out who has these craft. And then once we know who has them, then what do we do with that information? Do we depend on the government to do something about it, right? Or do we, you know, show up outside the fence line with signs saying, hey, we wanted the truth, tell us the truth. I don't know which way to go there, because I think, you know, the Congress has already had, I think we've given them enough time. I think we've had enough hearings. I think we had enough whistleblowers come out that were close enough to the information to give them, you know, to let them know where to go. One of these contractors is likely who David Grush told them to go see, or Jake Barber told them to go see, one of these contractors. So knowing that, what can the Congress do? Can they just walk in there and say, hey, we want to see some stuff? What steps do they need to take then to go into one of these contractors to verify what's going on? That's the question. Do they even have the intent on doing that? Are they just gaslighting us in you know, just delaying the whole, you know, playing along with the slow drip disclosure? Because I think that it feels like that's what's happening. if they don't come with some action behind the information they already have, but they're still requesting more hearings, you got to ask yourself, for what? Like, why do you need more hearings? Why do we need to keep elaborating? Why do you need to have that first party witness when you can literally go to the place that David Grush told you to go to and talk to a first party witness? You can go find the first party witness yourself. Go walk into the facility where the stuff is at, and let's start having a conversation. Why is Congress waiting for someone to step out? Because they know that won't happen. They know that first party person won't step out. So is that the play to say, okay, we're waiting for that person to step out. We're waiting for that first party person to come out, knowing that they never will. So it's the gray area that we sit in for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Where it's like, hey, we've been waiting for a first party person. We still haven't had that hands-on person. You can literally go to the contractor, knock on the door, and talk to multiple first party persons. So why is it not being done? I'm leaning into when this stuff started, the hearings, it was like, whoa, okay, wow, attention's being brought to it within the government. Man, maybe this will make it up the chain. Man, maybe this will make it up to the president. Maybe someone will see how serious this is and step out and do something, right? Knowing deep down that it probably wouldn't happen like that. But as time goes on, as year after year, as UAP report after UAP report, as time keeps going on, I think 2 years ago we were at the point where this should have been escalated, and we should have been looking at the contractor 2 years ago when Grush came out. So what are we doing now? It's obvious that some of these reporters, Ross Coulthard, some of these others, James Fox, all these people that are talking to people behind the scenes, it's evident that the data is out there. It's evident that if you really wanted to get to the truth, you know who to talk to get there. So why aren't you doing it? Right? They can sit up, Anna Paulina Luna goes on Joe Rogan and talks about interdimensional beings. And, she's going super deep. Well, go knock on the door of the contractor. Like, let's not just freaking have the conversation. Go do some action. Instead of going on Joe Rogan talking about interdimensional beings, what is that going to do? What is that really doing? Are you just trying to placate to the crowd, to the UFO community? You're trying to make us feel good because you're talking our language, our lingo? Nah, man, go knock on those doors and see what they're doing in there. And that's kind of where we'll leave it right here, because I just want to make sure that I got a show out the way, because it's been a while, and this show has kind of been hanging in the balance. Crash retrievals. I think we'll do a part 2, because I wanted to focus on Plant 42, because Plant 42 is supposedly where a lot of people are pointing their finger to where the action is at. So I'll even, I'm going to put some things together, and I'm considering driving down to Plant 42 just to kind of, if I get a signal, maybe do a live stream from the facility, from outside the facility. I think that might be pretty neat. So I'm trying to line that up, but, I think we got to start. We're not moving the needle anymore as far as these hearings go. I would be shocked if this next hearing generates anything or moves anything. I would be shocked. I'm going into this next hearing feeling like probably nothing's going to happen. But even usually when that's the case, there's still little nuggets that you might be able to tie on to. So I'm at least looking forward to that. Maybe something they didn't say, which, is something that you can always kind of get something from whatever it is they end up saying at the end. But does it move the needle is the question. I don't think it does. If we're not getting the person in the building with the craft on these next hearings, then what are we doing, guys? And we need to refigure this out. You know, maybe we need to stop focusing on this UAP committee. Maybe we need to quit giving them shine, the Tim Burchetts, the Anna Paulina Lunas, the Rhett Burlesons. Maybe we need to kind of cast them aside and reformulate the plan, or like how can we go forward? Because like I said, I think as experiencers and as researchers as well, as people trying to get to the truth, the next step is the contractors. That's where the craft are. They're at the contractors, whether it's reverse engineered or whether it's retrieved, they're at the contractors. So what can we do about that? That's the question. So we'll think about that, and we'll get back into some other stuff as well. Like I said, I just want to make sure that I got you guys back in the mix here, because I'm doing a few things, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. I'm trying to reformulate a few things. I'm restructuring this show. It's still going to be UFO News Show, but I want, as far as the way I want it to come across, there's a few things I need to do to tweak this a little bit. So we're going to be doing that, plus a lot more. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to jump up out of here, but I did want to leave you guys just with the question of, like, where could we go? If we knew which contractor was doing this, what could be those next steps? What is it that we could do next to make this thing move? What could we do? And I think it's either sitting outside the contractor, kind of bringing noise to that, because the Congress knows, but they need to know that we know. They need to know that we know where the craft are. Then they don't have a choice. They kind of have to move in and like, oh my God, okay, they kind of know. Yeah, we need to figure out where the craft are, start making some noise around that, keeping an eye on what it is that they're doing and the movements at these facilities, and kind of go from there. With that being said, though, let me see. Paramarv is sharing his frustration, but I remind myself that we are not the target audience. The average viewer here knows more than most folks holding the hearings. Yeah, but here's the thing, and that makes it worse. That makes it even worse, because we know, so we can see the game, and we can see that they are, kind of stringing us along with the way that they're doing this, because they could take action. But those people who are you're talking about, who are outside the community, they're just falling for it. They're just like, they're trying. Yeah, they said they're going to try. They're just, all they need is the person who had the hands on the craft. That person might not ever come. I don't think that person ever comes. So for the people outside the community, if we weren't here to kind of push the issue, meaning us within the community, then people outside the community would just go along with whatever is being said. Well, they said it was that, so let's move on. And so we're kind of the ones that have to keep the fight alive. Like, if we don't do it, if we don't keep the fight alive, then it'll be just where they want it to be, which is, look over here, hey, look over there, right? And that's unfortunately what we can't let happen. We can't fumble the ball here. Send the NHI to watch this show. Please do. Maybe that's what, yeah, so let's figure out their frequency, right? So we can broadcast, and maybe they'll pick it up, because it's, that's why I'm saying, think about this. Think about this real quick before we go. Think about this. If one of those times where I talked about, times where it seems like extraterrestrials were attempting to contact humans, which is like the Ariel School, the Westall School, the Phoenix Lights, UFOs over DC, the New Jersey drones. Think if we had some sort of something already worked out on how we would try to initiate a response to said contact. We don't even have one, right? We're kind of just looking around like depending on psionics and things like that, right? What do we really have? If tomorrow, and I think it's already happened with those examples I just gave, but I think if we were to step in tomorrow and we have another drone situation where they're just here and they're not going anywhere like they were in New Jersey. Like I said, everybody wants the White House on the lawn moment. I think that was it, or at least one time where they tried to. Imagine if we could go back to the drone time and we tried to initiate contact some way. Like if we had some sort of plan, something to get their attention, to let them know, hey, yeah, we see you. And let's move to the next step. Like, what would that look like? How would we be able to initiate that, right? Because I think that's what needs to happen. Like, you know, when we talk about disclosure coming from us and not the governments, I think us as the community, as the experiencers, the researchers, we need to have a strategy on what would be the best way to respond to something like that. It can't just be sitting on your hands and, you know, because if the New Jersey drone situation was any measurement of how we would handle it, we failed. They were there every day for 2 months. What do you think that was? If it was not prosaic, which we've been down that avenue so many times, there's so many different things to say that was not explainable, that a lot of it was not explainable. Now, obviously, some of it's going to be, but even with that, some of it not being explainable, if they're there every day for 2 months straight, what do you think that means? Like, what do you think that is? It would appear that they are trying to contact you without landing, obviously, and getting out and saying, hey, because who would? I wouldn't do that if there was a species like human beings down there. And I'm like, I'm not going to land down there with those guys and get out. Are you crazy? Like, let's just show up and see if we can get them to, you know, engage, or, you know, let's take it slow, right? So I think that's what we're dealing with. And I think we need to get together as a community, figure out what would be the best way to respond to these things. Next time we have an event like that, a Phoenix Lights, next time we have an aerial school, any sort of face-to-face, what will we say? What is the thing that we will do in that moment? We don't know. So I think we need to figure that out, because, if I think we're in a stuck spot right now where there are a lot of people that, for whatever reason, still are hanging on the next hearing, the next report, the next this, the next that. When I watch all these different shows, it's people talking about stuff like that, right? Not really getting into the, hey, what are we gonna do? And I think that's where we need to be at in this conversation. So if that takes us going to said contractors' fence line and saying, hey, we want the answers, release the technology, bring free energy, whatever it is, whatever, angle that we're going to take on that, I think we need to start doing that. I think we need to start showing that we have interest instead of just saying that we do, right? I think there's some of us that can get out there and go to these places and just at least show that we want something done, instead of just hopping online and leaving a comment, or, if you have the ability to go there, why not do that? So that's kind of where I'm at. So my plan is, when I do the next show on this, as we get further into the contractor conversation, I want to do a show from the location, because why not? Why not, right? I don't know if there's internet there for me to do that. We'll have to see. I'm gonna drive down there and kind of, scope it out. I know you can get really close to the fence line, and I know the buildings are right on the other side of the fence, so you can get a good, you're not going to see anything, but obviously it's just to know that, hey, right over that fence in one of those buildings, they have what we're looking for. They have the answer to the questions that we have. And it's not fair that those answers are right there in one of those buildings, and we don't, something that could affect humanity in such a grand fashion, and we can't get those answers, but they're right across that fence in one of those buildings. So I think that's where it gets real, right? I think that's where the conversation, if you visually see that, I think that's where it starts to get real. Like, okay, they're not just talking about UFOs. They're saying UFOs are in that building. Or they're saying UFOs are in somewhere in that Plant 42. Right? If we're getting to that point, I think that's what we need to push as a community. And maybe that's what we'll do. Yeah, I thought I'll let you know at NHI I thought our Discord. And I didn't have the Discord link, but we do have a Discord. If you go into the community link on the page here, you will see a link to join Discord. We have a lot of viewers that are already in there, and that's just a 24-hour open chat, essentially, where we could all talk together at any point in time. Doesn't have to be during the show. It could be any time. So just so you guys know that that's an option for people that use Discord. If you haven't used Discord before, maybe it's a good time to try. Once you set it up, it's pretty seamless. You're always connected. You just hop into the app occasionally, say, hey, there's people in there that you would be able to chat with from this channel, having discussions on this topic. So Discord is a great option. Go to the community tab on my channel and hit the link, and it'll take you through all the sign up process and to join the channel. So we'd love to see you there. So with that being said, this is it for this part of this show. Like once again, I really wanted to do this from the facility. I think it would, or at least have imagery or video from the facility. I think it would add more impact, but I intend to go there and film. So I'm going to do the math on how that works out, what I need to kind of put together to make that work, and then go do that. But I do appreciate everybody coming on out here tonight to the show, as we went ahead and got one off real quick, right? Because we haven't done it in a minute, and we're going to be back doing the same thing soon. There's a lot of UFO news. We could talk about the Annapolina Luna comments on the next show. I'll go ahead and schedule another show after this. But anybody out there that might be here for the first time, either here tonight or if you're watching this on replay, I'd love to see you back here, right? I'm getting things together. Normally this is a tight ship. We run this thing really tight, and there's a program that I'm using that is really kind of getting in the way. I'm getting comfortable with it, but it's still a little wonky, right? So I don't know what I'm gonna do there, but we're gonna keep raising the bar. So make sure that you keep the notification bell set, and I will set up another show. Maybe we'll do a late night call-in show tonight. I don't know. Just if you subscribe and hit the notification bell, then you shall see if that's what we'll do. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get ready to get you guys up out of here. I definitely thank you guys for coming on in. It's been awesome. We'll talk again soon. You guys, think about what we talked about here tonight. And if you want to, you can continue the conversation over in Discord, or you can leave some messages on the community tab, post something there, or you can actually post in the comment section of this video. If you have anything to add to this conversation, it would be great. I would love to hear from you. So with that being said, you guys have a great rest of your night. We're going to talk very soon. Have a great rest of your night. Take care. Welcome to the Social Shop, courtesy of the Social Dig. I am Mr. Rob G, and we are bringing you exclusive gear, and tonight's no different. We have humanity t-shirts, the positive progression of humanity. Yes, you can go out into the world and proudly show everyone what humanity means to you. $32.99, and remember, if you're a social soldier, you get an additional 20% off the price. That's right, being a social soldier gets you an additional 20% off. And keep in mind, depending where you are in the world, shipping fees and taxes will be applied. Bringing you exclusive gear right here at the Social Shop on the Social Dig.